65.3 million forcibly displaced, 21.3 million refugees, and of these, a measly 107,000 resettled. These are the numbers not from decades ago, not from the First or the Second World Wars. These are the figures from 2015, hardly a few years ago. Violence and instability have infested some countries, and no one seems to be able to contain it. Stranded in the crossfire between the regime, the rebel groups, extremists, and foreign troops, people flee their homes in search of new ones. They set out to find themselves a future in an unknown country they hope will be kind enough to host them. And that's where they get it wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, the wars rage, and so does an international debate on the people fleeing them. We talk and talk and talk. But how much do we really know? Are refugees really so undesirable? Will helping them mean hurting ourselves? For a long time now, refugees have been considered a burden to nations. Their pitiable condition is not denied, but they are seen as harbingers of nothing but trouble. They are shown closed doors by most. We think that we understand the plight of these people, that we would help them if we could. The stories of refugees in articles, videos, and pictures don't fail to move us. But when it comes down to actually welcoming them to our lands, we find ourselves at a dead end. We say that we have our own problems to worry about, that they will put more pressure on our already flailing economies, that they will drain our resources, that when we don't have enough for ourselves, how are we going to share? We say that they will steal our jobs, that they are terrorists in disguise. These widely prevailing beliefs are further propagated by the media and nationalist politicians. But are these really the facts, or are they just our biased, misconceived perceptions? Let us take a look at the examples of two countries. Two countries that are in the thick of things and have as much in common as chalk and cheese. Germany, probably the most famous for its refugee policy, has allowed over 1 million refugees to cross over its borders under the leadership of Angela Merkel. In 2015 alone, Germany welcomed more refugees than the entire European Union had in 2014. If refugees really are such a burden, then how is Germany going to manage such a large influx of them? What is the rationale behind this? With declining birth rates and an increasingly aging workforce of an average age of over 46, Germany is desperately in need for a young population of both skilled and unskilled laborers. And believe it or not, it has found its solution in these very refugees. A few thousand miles away lies Lebanon. A tiny country that shares its borders with Syria, it experienced an increase in its population by more than 1/3 after over 1 million Syrian refugees crossed over into its borders. An increase by 1/3. Let's think about that for a moment. For Germany, that would mean taking in more than 30 million refugees. And for the United States, more than 100 million. Mind-boggling, isn't it? The entry of such a large number of Syrians initially had a very rocky effect on the Lebanese economy, almost leading to an existential crisis and threatening to upset the delicate sectarian balance in the economy. However, with aid from the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees and other organizations, the Lebanese situation has witnessed a drastic improvement. In early 2017, the International Rescue Committee reported that over 84% of the refugees resettled by them in Lebanon had become self-sufficient in less than 6 months. In fact, they were giving back $2.13 for every dollar that had been spent on them. So what we can see from these two examples is that economies and societies around the world are vastly different from each other. We could see that in Lebanon, the entry of refugees was initially a burden on the economy. However, aid from different organizations helped the situation. Developing countries often tend to see refugees as a burden, at least in the short term. On the other hand, developed countries such as Germany are the ones with greater ability to invest in and integrate these refugees into their societies and ensure that they have a positive impact on all. If given the opportunity, refugees can contribute to society in numerous ways. The unskilled laborers fill in gaps in the industries and take up jobs that allowing locals to do jobs that they would rather prefer. Skilled workers don't actually steal all that many jobs. Rather, if guided by the government and given the right skill building sessions, they can be guided into the right workforce that needs them the most. Aging populations, such as Germany facing demographic challenges, can benefit from the younger composition of refugees. And of course, refugees become taxpayers, directly contributing back to society. In a recent interview, Ian Golden, a world-renowned economist, addressed these positive impacts that refugees can have. The ability of refugees to give to society depends to a certain extent on their capabilities and their characteristics, but most importantly, it depends on the aid and policies that receive them. If the refugee crisis and the debate was purely about the economic viability of hosting refugees, then there wouldn't really be too much of a debate. But the world isn't such a simple place, is it? In recent times, the most prominent bias against refugees seems to be the idea that they are dangerous people. Several politicians have made statements saying that allowing refugees to come into their countries would be giving free entry to potential terrorists. These statements are rather unfounded and not supported by any statistics. This may come as a surprise to many, but according to an analysis by the Cato Institute in Washington, D.C., the probability of an American dying because of a refugee in the United States is 1 in 3.64 billion. Let me say that again. 1 in 3.64 billion. So we have all these ideas, all these facts and figures. But what do they really tell us? They tell us that if given the right environment and support, education, employment, and enterprising opportunities, then refugees can and will positively impact both the society and the economy. But what is it that we can do? Firstly, it is of utmost importance that we realize that refugees are no different from any of us. They were just the unlucky ones to be born in the wrong place at the wrong time. All they want is another chance to live a life in which they can do more than just try to stay alive. Try to be happy, maybe. To everyone watching, I say, reflect on the numbers. What do they really tell us? It's time that we renewed the bond that we all share, a bond of humanity that we may have forgotten. It's time we refreshed our perspectives, understood what we believe in and why. It's time we realized that the humanitarian appeal and the pragmatic one are not mutually exclusive, rather two sides to the same coin. Letting them in can be more than an act of kindness. It makes plain economic sense. So to everyone watching, I tell you, listen to the numbers, read the facts, understand the crisis. Let them in. Thank you.